Okay, we're starting on section 4, personal assets. This is actually kind of a scary part, I think, for me and for most individuals.
This is the scary part.
You can't hide anything here from the IRS, right?
That's true, because the first thing they do when they get this is they're going to do an asset search on you. They're going to do a DMV search and an asset search. They will know your bank accounts, anything that has your Social Security number attached to it.
This is the full disclosure part.
Correct.
That we need to do. Okay. Line 11 is cash on hand. Okay, I've got $7 in my pocket right now. Is that part of it?
I generally use $20 because the average person has $20. Okay, but if you have 100, then you write down 100.
Okay.
That's very clear. Put down how much money you have.
Okay, now personal bank accounts, that's pretty simple. They have a spot here for a savings and a checking account. Account numbers, that's simple. The amount, looks like there's a account balance as of date.
Correct.
Okay, I noticed that you can't put slashes or anything in there if you happen to be typing out this form, but if you write them in by hand, you can put slashes to make it easier to read. So all you need is a bank statement for this.
Yeah, I don't want you to put how much you have today. Go back to the bank statement that you are prepared to mail in with this offer and put the amount on that bank statement, and I would move the closing amount on the bank statement over to that line, 12A or 12B, the exact amounts.
There's only place here for one savings and one checking account. Do I just list those on a separate piece of paper and attach them?
Well, I like to attach a little index card. Put the additional information, and I want you to paper clip that on here when you mail it in.
So we just add up the figures and we get our total cash in personal bank accounts. Okay.
Yes.
Now, investments. Okay, the first investment that I know about that I have is a 401k. It's a company retirement plan. So I just take the information straight off my statement and log it in right here.
It's as simple as that.
And then if you've taken a loan out against any of these investments, they just ask you for the loan balance. All of this information should be on your statements, correct?
If it isn't, you call the company, the retirement plan, and they will fax that to you or mail that to you. Hopefully they'll fax it to you because you're going to need to attach it.
Now, if you just have an investment account, say you buy stocks online, stuff like that, do you list the individual stocks that you own, or do you list the account where you are buying these investments?
If you have an Ameritrade or an E-Trade account, you look at your last Ameritrade statement, and then you need to put the current value right where it says current value. I've not seen it very often that there are loans against your stock account. There's lots of times you'll have loans against a 401k, but very rarely with a My Stockbroker account, okay?
So then we add the numbers, we get our total equity.
Correct.
So,
yes.
I'm feeling a little better about this. Now, available credit, line 14A here, list bank issued credit cards with available credit. All right, so now I do have a Visa card. So I guess what that means is the credit limit's $3,000. We have a balance according to our last statement of $2,200, so I have an $800 available credit. Does that mean the IRS is going to want me to use that credit?
They're looking to see if you have monies out there that maybe you might be able to use for your offer. But they're looking for cash. So they're looking for bank credit cards. They're not looking for JCPenney's.
Okay, so now we just add up the total and place that on line 14C. Then we'll move on to life insurance. We talked about this a little bit earlier. This is where we put down our insurance company, the policy number, and the cash value of the insurance policy.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Now, this wouldn't be term life insurance. It says up there's a little note, term life insurance does not have cash value. This is only life insurance that has a cash value.
Yes, and even if you have borrowed against it and there isn't any cash value in it, they still want a copy. Remember, we said that previously. They want a copy of it because you need to prove that you do have the insurance and that you do not have the availability to borrow on it if that's the case.
All right. Line 16 on page 3. In the past 10 years, have any assets been transferred by the individual for less than full value? Okay, let's say I had an older car that I transferred to my son in 2004. It had a value of about $5,000. You know, if that's the actual value, do I need to list that car?
Well, if you remember, this is under penalty of perjury. If you did, yes, I'd like you to list it, but it is not going to be considered an asset of yours, okay? Because it's very common for a person to give a car, sell a car, whatever, to a child as they grow up. If you've given away property planning this offer, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for types of fraud. You have to be very careful. I'm going to read this here. Under penalty of perjury, I declare that to the best of my knowledge and belief, the statement of assets, liabilities, and information is true, correct, and complete.
All right, now we're moving to real property owned, rented, and leased. This kind of confused me, and then I thought about it for a minute. Real property owned, that would be your home.
Correct.
There's lots of ways on the internet, through real estate, to figure out the value of your home.
I don't want you to go out and spend $600 to have an appraisal of your home. That's not what they're asking for.
Okay, so all they're really asking for is a good estimation of the current market value of your home.
There are many different ways to find a reasonable association to the value of your house.
The loan balance and the amount of the monthly payment just comes off from our mortgage statement.
Correct. Correct.
So all we have to do is subtract our loan balance from the fair market value to get the equity in the house.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so I've offered my mortgage records. I put the purchase date. I put the current fair market value, included the loan balance, the amount of the monthly payment, the date of the final payment. It was a 30-year loan, so that was easy to figure out. Okay, and then I subtract the current loan balance from the current fair market value.
Correct, correct.
And I get the equity.
You have to also think, if you were to sell that house, wouldn't you have to pay a real estate agent? I think to be safe, if you would use 6%, and I can't tell you that that's the absolute figure, nor can I guarantee that figure that the IRS is going to use that, because it's not set in stone anywhere. So I'd like you to take 6% off of the value of your home, and we're going to call that the quick sale value reduction.
And then we just fill out the lender name and address. All right, so I've got my home. In the description of this section, it says property owned, rented, or leased. That means property that I own, that I rent out or lease to someone?
Of course, that could be, but most people who are in this particular situation that you're in, doing an offer and a compromise, they're generally only dealing with their personal residence.
Okay, this brings up an interesting question. I have a neighbor that has a timeshare. Is a timeshare considered real estate?
It is, and that's exactly what I was talking about when you had a complexity that was beyond the scope of the basic toolbox that we're talking about. When you get into any of those type of issues, you need to call in and talk to one of our professionals on how that should be dealt with in a more complex toolbox.
Let's move to vehicles here. I have a 2007 Ford Taurus. It's got about 52,000 miles on it. We purchased it new. The current fair market value, according to the Blue Book and according to checking, like on the internet, checking comparable prices, is $12,825. My car payment book says I have a $11,950 payoff right now. My monthly payment's $215. And the date of final payment just comes right off from the car payment book here. So it shows I have $875 equity in my car. Did I figure that correctly?
Well, yeah, you actually did. And this is a place where it's clearly written by the Internal Revenue Service. And were you to go to the Internal Revenue website, it says this: determine fair market value by consulting with a professional association, your guide, your ads, your local dealers, classified ads, and you can also go to the internet. Then the Internal Revenue Service is very specific. They want you to determine the quick sale value by reducing the fair market value by 20%. If your equity comes out negative, once again, Rick, I want you to just put a 0.
Okay, using that formula for calculation, my equity comes out to $10,325. And I'm negative, so I have 0 equity in my car.
Absolutely. That's the way it goes. So far, you've got a lot of negative equity there, Rick.
Well, that's good.
That's good for an offer.
Okay, now let's move down to just below line 18, personal assets. It says furniture, personal effects, artwork, jewelry, collections, antiques, other assets. How do I determine the fair value?
Well, we like to call it garage sale value. If you took everything in your house this Saturday and drug it all out to the curb, how much money would you have at the end of Saturday? And that is the value of what's in your house that day. And we like to use that. Generally, it's about $1,000 for the average person.
I think that's about right.
Well, you have to determine, you know what's in your house.
Okay, so we'll put $1,000 down there. Now, we also just bought a brand new washer and dryer. We bought it last month because the old one just gave up the ghost. We're only paying $80 a month, but we have an $800 loan on the washer and dryer. So how do I determine the fair market value? These are brand new. Wouldn't they be a little higher?
Actually, you're not going to get lucky here either, Rick. Because even though the fair market value was, what, did you buy it for $800 it looks like? And the fair market value probably is $500 if you're lucky.
Okay.
And you would think that you would get to use a minus there. You kind of have a minus there, but you can't. Remember the old rule here. When it's a minus, use a 0.
So then we add the numbers, we get our total equity.
Correct.